named Katie Reese, and she's a musician. She was on America's Got Talent. She was on the Jimmy Fallon Show. She was on Good Morning America, Steve Harvey Show. Her family won America's Most Musical Family on Nickelodeon. We dated for a year and a half, and she's 34 years old, and she's still a virgin. And when we dated, I remember we were up on a football field one night. We had like a blanket out, and she had her guitar, and she was playing songs for me. And that's when she told me that she was a virgin, and that she was that she was just letting me know that that's how it's gonna be until we got married. And that just like shocked me. And I remember I tried to argue with her over it, and and the way she explained it to me, it's I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was so beautiful, and I just like looked at her, and this is a girl that I realized that I wanted to absolutely marry no matter what. So I just said, okay, it's fine. And then throughout the relationship, we would, there would be moments where we would kiss for a long time, and eventually, we'd start kind of feeling each other up a little bit. Never going too far, but in my opinion, I didn't think we were going far at all. And she would call me later that night and say, "Hey, I think what we did tonight, it's I know it's not anything too serious, but we shouldn't do that again." And that would just infuriate me. It was just annoyed me to no end. But in the end, I would say, okay, I'd be fine with it, because I did want to marry this woman. And eventually, she broke up with me a year and a half into the relationship, and for very, very good reasons that I don't need to necessarily get into. But I remember she wrote me a letter afterwards. Well, I wrote her a letter first, and just apologizing for the things I did wrong. And in the letter, I told her how much I loved her, and she wrote back to me saying that, "Jeremy, I know you tried to love me." And that when she wrote those words, "I know you were trying to love me," that made me so mad, and it really hurt when I read them. And as time went on, and I started getting more serious about my faith, it made absolute sense, because in the end, I actually wasn't really truly loving her. I was trying, but I didn't know how to love. And that's where I'll get into the talk. So Google's definition of love is an intense feeling of deep affection, or a great interest or pleasure in doing something. Webster's definition is feeling of strong or constant affection for a person, an attraction that includes heavy sexual desire. And yourdictionary.com says a strong and lasting affection between spouses. So, common theme there is, the world defines love as feelings, okay, as an emotion. Well, I don't know if you guys know who St. John of the Cross is. St. John of the Cross, he was a church mystic, okay, which meant that he could, had moments where he would see and actually have, intense spiritual experiences with God. Like, St. John of the Cross says that in the end, we will be judged on how much we have loved. That is going to be what we're judged on above all else, on how much we have loved. Not how much we fasted, not how much charity we necessarily gave. Well, charity is associated with love, but not how much penance you did, but how much you have loved. And St. Paul says, love is the fulfillment of God's law. All right? So that means Love is not material. It is not an act of the flesh. It is independent entirely of our emotions and feelings. Okay, so most people think, that love is indeed what Google's definition is, because that's how the world teaches you to love. So this is modern society's version of love, and the list goes on with the same, man, I cannot read my own writing. With the same, okay. So, skip this part. All right. So most people, love means only one thing, me. This is how the world wants you to think, me. It's, however, anyone fits in my little world to please me, or make me feel loved, or self-fulfilled, or self-satisfied. This is an indication of whether or not I love another person. It's how they make me feel. In other words, it's all about my self-affirmation or self-empowerment. That's how most people think of love, okay? That's exactly how most people think of love. And this is ridiculous. Some think that if I feel good about others, that it means that I love. TV, media, internet, advertising. I saw a billboard the other day for chocolate, and it said, never, 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 ever deny pleasure. All right, and there's billboards like that everywhere. It revolves around pride, selfishness, self-love, and the ego. Self-expression is the world's advice to lead us to happiness. This is why pornography is such a major industry. All this is hell. It's the definition of hell. And hell is the absence of God. Therefore, to love someone means you are trying to get them to heaven. A true marriage between both spouses is when both people are trying to get each other to heaven. And what does that actually mean? What does it mean to get somebody to heaven? All right? In today's, I don't know how to really explain this in detail without probably making a lot of people angry. Let's see. I'm going to tell you a story. All right? This is a story of two martyrs. Okay? These are two Catholic martyrs. It's St. Timothy and St. Mara. All right? And the year was 286 AD. All right? Saint Timothy and Saint Mara were married for 20 days. All right? And both were very, very, very good Catholics. All right? And there was a governor. The governor's name was Saint Paleo. No, yeah, he's Saint Paleo. I'll get to that in a minute. But at the time, he was a pagan governor. So they were married for 20 days, and he calls in Saint Timothy, and he tells Saint Timothy to take all of his scriptures and burn them. And Saint Timothy refused, and said, "No, I'd rather die." And he said, "Okay, good, because we're about to torture the hell out of you." And they did. The first thing they did was take two metal rods and they stuck it through his ears. All right, like sharp metal rods. Stuck it through both of his ears and stuck it in far enough to where he went blind. He went blind and he was able to retain some of his hearing, although he was mostly deaf. And so they started plucking his teeth out. And after they plucked his teeth out and he still would refuse to burn his scriptures, they called his wife in, St. Mara. And as they called her in, and they said, convince your husband to burn these books, because, it's if he doesn't, it's going to start like an uprising, and people are starting to talk about this. Basically starting to impact people, because the village and the surrounding areas were hearing of this man being tortured. So his wife comes in and talks to him and tries to convince him, hey, we just got married, are you going to leave me as a widow? Look, just burn the books, they're just books. and the guy just immediately tells his wife, I think he actually, like, the account is that he, like, yelled at her. And he said, "Woman, would you have me damned to hell, and deny me, the pleasure of becoming a martyr?" And instantly that struck her. So much so that she went right back to the governor and said, "I want to be martyred with my husband." And so they crucified both of them on the same cross together. So both their hands were nailed in the same spot. And they died for 3 days. So they were up on the cross for 3 days, nailed to one another. And they died. And that's what true love is. It's not what you see on TV. It's not what the world tells you. If you truly love someone, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, and the world will try to crucify you. Because it goes against everything the world tells you to do. And that's really hard to understand at your age. But the older I get, the more I realize how trivial and stupid things are. And how wonderful and amazing God is, and how important faith is. It's the only thing that matters. Sorry for getting emotional. Talk on love is supposed to be happy. But I've experienced a lot of pain. And I've made a lot of mistakes. And I can tell you that to truly love something is to truly love God. And there's so many obstacles, like, in your way that keep you from doing that. And the only antidote to those obstacles is prayer. Prayer and receiving sacraments. I think I'm getting so emotional because when I was in the Marine Corps, I denounced God and made a mental promise to myself that, well, not promise, but I just decided that Catholicism was just it's almost brainwashing, and that the only reason I thought Catholicism was right was because my parents introduced it to me at an early age, and I went to Catholic schools, but I saw a lot of really dark and evil things while I was active duty, and I just stopped even believing in God. And it wasn't until I was 20, it wasn't until I was 30, I'm 32 now, it wasn't until I was 30 years old. This is after Katie broke up with me, but she gave me a book on Fatima. And I don't know if you guys understand what happened at Fatima, but right there, that was 3 children. Mary appeared to 3 children, and I was reading this book, and it was the last thing Katie gave me before she broke up. She just made me promise that I would read the book on Fatima, because even while we were together, and I was, dating this wonderfully devout Catholic girl, it never had an effect on me. I never believed. I still didn't believe in it. I was going through the motions. I wanted to, but it didn't hit me as real. And she gave me a book on Fatima, and I was reading about these 3 children, and then I read that they were thrown in jail at one point. They were thrown in jail and they were starved. And these 3 children loved God so much that the whole time they were in jail for a week, 5 days. The whole time they were in jail for 5 days, they did nothing but pray. They were on their knees praying. And then when food was brought to them, they refused it. And so they were starved in jail, and the authorities were threatening to take their parents' jobs away. But they loved God so much and were so devoted to Mary that it didn't affect them. It didn't faze them. And they never ever took back what they were claiming happened. Because it was the truth. And you can't find a single instance of children doing that, for any reason, for anything. There's not one single material possession in this world that a child will not denounce if they're thrown in jail and starved. Except God. So God is real and God is love. Very few people know how to actually love. Very few people. So, once again, with all the obstacles, that are mainly consist of pride, self-love, and lukewarm, Catholicism. The antidotes are prayer, the Eucharist, confession, all the sacraments. They're all there. Sorry, I meant to be a little bit more upbeat in this talk, and it just kind of, I don't know, my emotions just kind of hit me.
It's beautiful.
So, that's really all I got to say right now. Love is God. True love is loving God and abiding by His law. And that's it, in a nutshell. It's very simple. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank y'all, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. So basically, before we go into small group, what Jeremy's trying to say is there is a sacrificial love. And you heard him talking about that. That's what his girlfriend had for him. That sacrificial love that was willing to, even though Jeremy didn't really believe at that time in his life, she loved him so much that she was willing to be there for him, even though it was painful for her sometimes, I'm sure. Didn't feel good for her. And that kind of love is called agape love. It's the kind of love that God has for us. So it just means that you're willing to sacrifice something for someone you love. And it doesn't feel good. So Jesus dying on the cross, that was agape love. Like those 2 martyrs, St. Timothy, and what was the wife's name? I can't remember. Mara. They were nailed together. That's love. They were nailed together. They felt that pain for